It seems like Sony is finally saying enough is enough when it comes to games being created that nobody wants. Concord was a complete and utter failure that lost them over $500 million. The SuckerPunch co-founder recently left and they've put new leadership in place. Naughty Dog is being slapped on the wrist because they're not finishing their internal demos. And really, it just looks like we are seeing a massive changes at this company. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, of course, there are a lot of companies in this industry that are going through major changes. We are hearing that they are going through layoffs, they are canceling games, and I think that all of these things ultimately are probably good. The Sonys, the Microsofts, they overhired during the pandemic, and now they have so much dead weight. It's insane. Nothing is getting done, and you have a lot of conflicting voices on titles. They need to stop hiring activists, stop listening to activists, and actually bring back talented people. Hire the veterans that are still looking for work. Hire people who actually prove that they can make a good game or create a good story or whatever position you're hiring them for. Go back to merit-based hiring instead of DEI propaganda. And, well, it looks like Sony is going to be the first company to make some insane changes very quickly. We heard just a few days ago that a former Destiny artist and Marathon art director is leaving Bungie, and this was a good sign for Marathon. Now, I still think that it looks pretty rough. I don't look at that trailer and think they've made so much progress that, oh my gosh, I can't wait to monetarily support them. That's not the case. But I do think that if you are willing to change leadership at these studios, it's a little bit of a better sign. If you look at something like Naughty Dog, right, they refuse to get someone like Neil Druckmann, and he is very bad for Naughty Dog. I think that Neil Druckmann just has not proven himself. There's no reason that he is in this major position of power. But when it comes to Marathon, right, the art director faced a hell of a lot of scrutiny because the art team plagiarized. If this will save the game, I don't necessarily think so, but there is, I suppose, a small chance. I think that it's strange they got rid of an art director when clearly they're going to need somebody to oversee the art direction of future expansions and content drops, but they think that they don't need them. We know that Ghost of Yote's developer SuckerPunch actually had just lost one of their co-founders, and this seems really strange to me because if you just released a AAA game that did so amazing and met all of its internal goals, why would you want to leave? You'd think that they would want to stay around, they would want to help on a follow-up, they would want to be proud of the work that they did, but that isn't the case. Now, I don't think that Ghost of Yote was a complete and utter disaster. We did hear reportedly it had about a $60 million budget, and it did seemingly double that based off of the few numbers that we've gotten, but we don't know what Sony's internal goals were. They could have been insane. They could have wanted to make $1 billion in the first 12 months, and it's not on track to hit that. You never truly know because companies do always push the limits. Companies are greedy. They do want to make as much money off of a single project as possible. But yeah, you'd think that Sucker Punch wouldn't be going through this major leadership shakeup if the game actually did as well as the media at least wants us to believe. Then you get into the Naughty Dog situation. Apparently, they have not been hitting their internal goals. They are behind schedule, and Sony's sick of it. Intergalactic was revealed at the Game Awards 2024 with a long cinematic that landed as kind of a mashup of Uncharted with Ready Player One in space, Porsche-branded ship, Sony audio player, anime on the TV, and Pet Shop Boys on CD. Studio boss Neil Druckmann later said the game, despite its clear action trap trappings is about faith and religion, which is an interesting pitch, but we really haven't heard anything about it since. I think it's going to mock faith and religion, or it's going to be that, oh, you should be wary about religion, something along those lines. Who knows, though? Maybe it will be pleasantly surprising, but it sounds like things have not been going especially smoothly behind the scenes. The Bloomberg report says Naughty Dog has missed multiple internal deadlines on Intergalactic, and this pushes an attempt to get the game back on schedule. Employees were reportedly told not to work more than 60 hours per week and were also ordered to return to the office for 5 days a week rather than the 3 days per week that was previously permitted. And you're talking about having to run to the defense of people who have to go to work. Now, I do understand that working from home is a blessing. I completely agree with that. But at the same time, we're not talking about them being forced into a basement and held against their will, which really is the way that the media is trying to present it as. They're saying that this is the biggest problem that's happening in the video game industry right now, which I think is insane and just goes to show how out of touch these people actually are with reality. But when you get into how the journos really feel, it sounds crazy. They say Naughty Dog has been called out for its unhealthy crunch culture a number of times over the years. It's lauded highly ambitious games like Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2 both require development teams consisting of hundreds to work overtime to reach the finish line, while high-profile delays and inconsistent production timelines meant that once the end was finally in sight, the goalposts were moved and people were simply asked to deal with it. All of these games push the medium forward with prestige narratives, lifelike characters, and visuals that push the boundaries of realism, but all of these groundbreaking things came at an undeniable human cost. Developers who burnt themselves out and lost love for the craft were kept from their families for months at a time and prayed they would have sufficient time to make this game the best it possibly could be. So they are dramatizing for the sake of pushing a narrative, not that we expect any better from video game journalists. But yes, I do get that when you work so tirelessly at something, you can become burnt out, but I don't know. I think that when we're talking about making video games, it is hard to become burnt out because you're doing something you're allegedly so passionate about and you love so much. You'd think that that would be a blessing for 99% of people, but apparently for the biggest complainers on the face of this earth, it's just not good enough. And Sony already had faced major problems in 2024 because of Concord. It lost them a reported $300 to $500 million on one single project. It died 2 weeks after release, and it is still a meme to this day, and it will always be because it's the biggest failure in the history of the video game industry at this point in time. So we are talking about problem after problem after problem, and they already have gone through major leadership shakeups just at Sony Interactive Entertainment because the ex-Guerrilla Games managing director Herman Host, who was appointed co-CEO alongside the platform business group bigwig Hideki Nishino, was actually outed as a co-CEO. Now, he has not completely left the company, but he's not in the position he once was because the run was over as Nishino took sole CEO control of Sony Interactive Entertainment, the Sony business subsidiary, which contains PlayStation. And I think that this was always bound to happen. It was pretty shocking that it happened so quickly because really they only had less than a year together as co-CEOs. Seems that it just was not a good collaboration, I suppose you could call it, which isn't, in my opinion, the worst case scenario. At least they didn't get rid of both of them and then just decide, oh, we're going to put somebody else in this role. But Hideki Nishino has shown a little bit more capability. Herman Holst was actually the guy that decided to buy Firewalk Studios. It was supposed to be his big foray into purchases and acquisitions, and that definitely was a complete and utter disaster for him. But yes, we've seen a lot of major major shakeups going on at Sony and in their studios, and really this could be a very positive thing. I don't trust Sony. I do not think that it is smart to trust any of these companies, but at the same time, it does look like they are trying to change the directions that their games and their studios are going in, and I will be keeping a very close eye on this. But yeah, I did talk about this a few days ago as well, but I think it is very important that we all pay close attention to what is going on over at Sony and the moves that they are making. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.